South Africa's logistics system, the lifeblood of our economy, is under severe strain. And this week our attention turns to logistics, infrastructure and the cost of standing still. Hello, this is No Ordinary Wednesday, an Investec podcast where we take a deep and considered look at the forces shaping business, markets and investments, not just locally but across the globe. I'm Jeremy Maggs. The South African economy remains subdued and continues to face a myriad of challenges, notably on the logistics front, weighing on optimal economic activity and export potential. Specifically, Transnet's persistent bottlenecks are choking the flow of goods, constraining our exports and eroding competitiveness. Billions of rand in lost revenue each year means jobs foregone, investment deferred, and an economy that feels stuck in a slow lane. And yet there are signs of hope. The private sector is innovating. Policymakers are talking reform, and South Africa's global trading partners remain eager buyers. To explore these challenges and opportunities, I'm joined now by Vernon Sinden, Head of Logistics at Investec for Business. Vernon, a very warm welcome to No Ordinary Wednesday. So Vernon, let's start with a big picture. From your vantage point as head of supply chain at Investec, how would you describe the current state of South Africa's logistics and infrastructure ecosystem?
Of course, there's a couple of keywords that come to mind, and I'm sure we're all familiar with it. If we look at port congestion, vandalism and theft, lack of maintenance, and operational inefficiencies, is what we continue to hear, and it can sound overwhelming, but the appetite for private investment for our ports, roads and rail industry is there. The question is who, when, where first, and how. There is light at the end of the tunnel. Despite the challenges with Transnet that reported, I believe, a 1.9 billion loss ending March 2025, there is a silver lining, I guess, with the support of government providing a 94 billion guarantees. And then we also have to consider less load shedding, which is improving our current rail setup. And in theory, there should be less trucks on the road, but we're just not seeing it yet. We're looking at our ports, roads and rail. The infrastructure really does need massive improvement and upgrades, and it's just really not happening fast enough.
So whichever way you look at it, the bottlenecks are either continuing or accelerating through the system. Maybe just from your unique perspective, what do these bottlenecks look like on the ground? And what's the impact assessment here? How do they disrupt the flow of goods and services?
I think on the ground, there's a combination of influencing factors that contribute to it. If we look at schedule reliability from the shipping lines, they need to be accurate, and they're not always. The waiting time for vessels to berth, this all depends on the arrival time, and the available slots that Transnet gives us. The waiting time for containers to move off the vessels, the staging of containers for truckers to collect, and trucker availability and timing to collect. These are all just to name a few, and each one of them directly impact one another. The open window for periods are so short and it can be missed, So the timing is essential. Close coordination with various stakeholders needs to happen, and all at the same time. And all this can be managed, with the right partners.
Now, Werner, we know these challenges are structural. What has the impact been through global supply chain shocks and commodity cycles then?
Global supply chain disruptions are predictable to a certain extent. Like everyone in the country, and we have learned a lot during COVID and paid very expensive school fees. So as a country, we've become more resilient, I believe, and lessons were learned. And the way that we work with our partners and suppliers has changed significantly. I believe the main impact are increased delays and high costs, and potential disruptions that negatively impact our competitiveness, for South African businesses. Solving these issues are crucial, and we need to enhance the efficiencies and reliability of our logistics sector. And it's just taking too much time, and it does take time.
Which industries, in your opinion, are currently the hardest hit and will likely to be hit hardest going forward?
The cost of transport has increased across the board because of the inefficiencies. So all sectors would feel the effects, I believe, to a certain degree. Our mining, automotive, and agriculture sectors are particularly impacted, that are contributing significantly to our GDP.
So beyond balance sheets, let me ask you this, the broader economic costs of weak infrastructure are what?
Jobs, of course. That's the first thing that comes to mind is jobs that are affected. Weak logistics infrastructure, imposes significant economic costs that extend beyond the numbers. And then, addressing these challenges are essential to our competitiveness. We have to be sustainable and to have a resilient economy. By investing in our improvements, it will enhance our operational efficiencies and at the end of the day, stimulate growth.
And Vernon, it goes beyond the data, it goes beyond the numbers. Do you see investor sentiment, both domestic and foreign, being directly shaped by perceptions of our current logistics performance deficit or shortcomings?
Simply, yes. Perception of our port operations does influence our investors. This is why we need to intensify that our private and public sectors find a workable solution overall. I mean, access to goods and services are crucial, and this is what we continue to hear. And that's what investors are looking for.
We will continue this conversation in a moment with a closer look at innovative solutions that businesses can deploy. But first, I just want to remind you that a new episode of No Ordinary Wednesday drops every fortnight. Please don't miss it. Subscribe to Investec Focus Radio SA wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like the channel, please take a moment to rate us. You're listening to No Ordinary Wednesday, and I'm in conversation with Vernon Sinden, Head of Logistics at Investec for Business. So, Vernon, let's continue the conversation. You've given us a very big backdrop. You've identified what the problems are. Now let's turn our attention to solutions. What innovative ones, be it in technology, partnership or operational strategy, are businesses already deploying at this point to try and cope with the situation?
I think the thing that really stands out for me, Jeremy, is communication is key within logistics and supply chain. I mean, there are hundreds of moving parts, and the time that it takes to receive information either from suppliers, shipping lines, or freight forwarders is really lacking. I mean, we need a holistic solution, and in order to make informed decisions, to mitigate the risk of supply chain disruptions. I mean, there are various online platforms to track shipments and receive automated updates and so on. However, it can become confusing, where to go and what to look at first, and it's not always accurate. I mean, partnership is needed within the private and public sector, I believe, and I've said this before, to develop accurate systems with direct API integrations. And I mean, in the perfect world, that would be amazing, where importers and exporters need to diversify sourcing strategies and not have all their eggs in one basket. I mean, the example of just mentioning that is China has been our biggest partner, and we need to look at emerging markets like India and Southeast Asia as supply options, with alternative costs and of production. And from an operational side of things, we need to look at splitting our various import solutions with various shipping lines and not have all our eggs in one basket there to avoid transshipment delays, to make sure that we get our goods on time, or to have a plan B, so to speak.
I'm wondering if you're able to share possibly an example of a private sector intervention that has successfully eased a choke point in that supply chain.
I think, one notable example is the partnership between Transnet and various logistics companies, where we are improving our rail services. Also, the shipping lines in partnership with Transnet offering alternative solutions in moving containers out faster. This can speed up the processes and ultimately avoid storage charges. And I think we need more of that.
So government and Transnet itself spoken very vigorously, as you've just referenced, to opening the door to more private participation, all well and good. But at this point, what progress has there been, and what timelines do you think we should be watching? Or I'm wondering if that may be a little too early to call.
Yes and no. I think, it is achievable, and I think there has been a lot of progress that has been made. But the timing is key, and we need to look at what's already been done. As I mentioned before, with rail and Transnet partnerships, those are all positive. Progress has already been made, but it's not fast enough. The success relies on strong support from government and regulative restrictions. We need clear communication with all parties involved. And I mean, it's important to keep an eye on the changes. And in the short term, if you had to look at it, that could be between 1 to 2 years, and understand how these reforms will affect logistics in South Africa.
So, Vernon, if for one day I were to make you the Minister of Logistics, okay, and you probably wouldn't want the job, but anyway.
Absolutely.
If you could design one quick win in terms of reform, what would it be?
I mean, if I had a magic wand, logistics is fluid and constantly changing. Predictability and reduction of costs are essential. To help solve that, I would love to have a digital platform that can provide real-time tracking of shipments across the board. That includes cost comparisons for all modes of transport with alternative solution. This will help improve efficiency and enhance costs, and to make us more competitive and attractive in the market. I believe, we all have challenges within Transnet and the road, but I mean, we don't have visibility to make informed decisions. And if we can have that, it will be a game changer.
Of course, we're not the only country, and this, by the way, is a final question to you. We're not the only country that is experiencing difficulties like this. I wonder if there are lessons that we can learn from other emerging market economies that might give us a pointer in terms of overcoming similar logistics bottlenecks.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if we look at case studies, that have shown us that other emerging markets that have had similar challenges as us, I mean, port delays, lack of infrastructure, these are not limited to us. I mean, if we look at India specifically, I mean, they've had significant investment and upgrade of their transport and infrastructure, including roads, railway and ports. And that has been a game changer for them and really influenced their economy. I mean, we need to focus on public and private sector partnership to find funding and ultimately the expertise. We need to focus on upgrading our infrastructure, and this will definitely support growth.
And that's where we are going to leave it. My thanks to Vernon Sinden, Head of Logistics at Investec for Business. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, my invitation for you to follow Investec Focus Radio SA wherever you get your podcasts. We will be back in a fortnight with more analysis on the major economic trends shaping our markets. Until then, goodbye from me, Jeremy Maggs, and the entire Focus Radio team.
The views expressed are those of the contributors at the time of publication and do not necessarily represent the views of the firm and should not be taken as advice or recommendations. Investec Limited and subsidiaries, authorized financial service providers, registered credit providers, and long-term insurer.